It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here.
With Barnett Bain. Always love being here. Just love it.
Yep.
High point of the week.
Yep. So, those
How was
of
the rest
you...
of your week, by the way?
I was good. I went to prison again.
Yeah, that's good.
Another round of just vibing on Sister Pat and her presence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing about that experience, so we saw 3 boys yesterday. One was 13, one was 14. No, 2 were 14. Yeah, one was 13 and 2 were 14. The third boy, I think, is going to be fine. Like, I think he's going to move on, and I don't think he's going to be a repeat person at juvie. The second boy, it was his first time there, but the first boy at 13, it was his 5th time incarcerated. 5th time.
How old is he?
13.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? He was so worn for 13. He had a slice across his face from a knife, being cut with a knife. He had a scar on his head, and he had 2 broken fingers. And the pain. And as we talked to this boy, you know, it was really intense because his story, not dissimilar from lots of people's story, the whole thing broke down for him at 10. And that's when he discovered that his stepfather wasn't his real father. And this is such a... I've heard this story, you know, working at Homeboy for 2 years, and then my experience...
I had that story.
Yeah. Oh, man. So...
It's a traumatic thing
his
for a
world
boy.
came apart. And what happened is... this is my interpretation. I'm not holding this too tightly, but the pain, as we talked about this, and that... you know, he went nuts. I mean, there's a kind of look in his eyes. You know, you look deep into his eyes, and he got emotional when we were talking to him. Sister Pat can open anybody up, first of all. Just the way she shows up as a lover just opens everybody up. It's instant, right? She reaches out, she touches his hand, she tell me your name, son, and they melt. And I melt just watching her do it. Just those words, tell me your name, son. You know, I've seen Father Greg Boyle do it too. The two of them actually are in they work together. Sister Pat gives away Father Boyle's card with her name on the back, which I call the golden ticket, because these kids go and they show up to Homeboy with the golden ticket, and they, you know, immediately are in because Sister Pat's already, you know, prepped them. The pain in this boy's eyes, and, you know, and as he talked about his experience, it's powerful. Again, you know, one of those things about service is the idea is I'm doing this and I'm being a good guy. I get so much out of doing it. I leave just, you know, totally humbled and, you know, deeply grateful for the opportunity to witness that level of humanity, you know. And again, in the past when I've done it, it's different. Showing up with Sister Pat is different because, again, how she... by being loving and being in this loving presence, how she immediately taps in. There's no nonsense. There's no BS. You know, we're not dancing around. She gets right in there. She knows what they need. They need love. And she takes their hand. She says, tell me your name, son. And bang, we're in business. And everything drops down. You know, we arrive and there's all these security gates and whatever. We meet in the chapel, and then we all go into the wards that we're in, the various cell blocks, right? And you go through, you know, one locked door and another locked door, and everyone has to open you up, and you get into this ward, and invariably the kids are watching TV, and there's, you know, prison guards around, and there's so much intensity in this situation. And when the kid's pulled out because he's asked to do this is something voluntary. They're not required to sit and talk to us. There's a kind of snicker, and it's weird, you know, and they're all kind of watching that everyone's watching them. I've always said it's kind of a predatory environment. At least it feels that way to me. But then they get in the room, and how do you get them there? You know, and again, Sister Pat just brings them right there. I don't know. I feel like I've talked enough about it, but powerful situation. And hearing that story last night from this 13-year-old boy who's just wearing his pain. He's just wearing it. It's gripping. It just holds me. And I left just going, wow, and what a gift for me to witness that humanity, and be whatever service I can be. I mean, I don't know what effect I might have had. I hope I had a positive effect,
So how did you respond to him when he told you that story?
I listened, and I responded back as he was getting emotional, that I recognized it was hard for him. And, my work was to really try to see if we could hold the hurt that he's feeling, but also find another way of finding something some way of making meaning out of this, making some meaning that can help move him out of the choices he's been making into choices that are more constructive. And so I talk a lot about, well, can you imagine a possibility for your life? Can you imagine some path you might take other than the path you have taken that would be more fulfilling and more gratifying? And, this boy thankfully had some ideas. He had some things he wanted to do, some things he thought about, ways that this experience could be, ways that he could be helpful to other boys who are going through, or go through what he's going through. So that's what we talked about, and again, every time at the end, and for those of you who didn't tune in before, I've talked about this once before, this experience I'm having, teaming up with Sister Pat, which isn't really how it's set up. I chose to do it this way, and Sister Pat agreed to it, which is fantastic. Normally you just go in alone, but I've asked to be with Sister Pat because for me, she's a master teacher. The way she shows up and shows up with this love is just, I want to be around that, I lost track of what I was going to say.
You were speaking about how you responded to this boy.
Yeah. You know what I want to say in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just want to repeat, I hope I was helpful. I mean, there's a humility in this process where I don't know. I mean, I just don't know.
How do you think how do you feel that you might have been helpful?
I think I think that the work that I do in my coaching about helping people to imagine possibilities that are just slightly beyond what they've previously been imagining for themselves, and then my own ability to hold that vision for them, and even hold the vision that's slightly beyond that to sort of infer from what they're saying, what other possibilities, and even suggest that maybe, that's a very, very valuable thing.
I'm talking about the boy.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do with him. So that's my work. That's what I bring to the table as an experience and something I do regularly. And then the very valuable part, I know I was going to talk about, that Sister Pat brings, and the end, the prayer, which for me is the intention, where, again, it's like, I feel like she says the Spirit's here and it can take care of this, right? That's what she sort of says. Calls it the Holy Spirit. It's here. It can take care of this. You can trust this Spirit. Similar to how I might say you can trust the intention, right? You can trust the intention and then it will find expression. If you can hold that intention as sacred, if you can hold it as dear, it will find expression. You'll find ways to make that so. So that's really what we were doing. Again, I don't want to, similar to the way we've been talking, maybe on the last show and often, is I don't want to hold this too tightly. I don't want to make a process out of it. I don't want to make it a 3-step or a 7 steps. I don't want to do that to it. It's something that I have skill in, but that is constantly revealing itself. And there's an element of unknown. My intention is to serve, and I go in there and I serve and am served by the process. And heck, that's as much as I can tell you at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I can only have empathy for that boy when I'm hearing this story. And if I, as a young boy, when I learned that my stepfather was not my father, or that my father was not my father, and it would have been a very, very different. I would have had a very different response. I don't know how empowered it would have been, but it would have been a different response had not that information been withheld, because then there is in the denial of it, there is so much power in the denial. It need not be there. It need not be such a big deal. It becomes everybody else's stuff.
Pain and
gets
shame.
Laid on in what what some people call agency.
Yeah.
They put their agency into that, and then
Yeah.
they control and manipulate. And it is all of that denied stuff gets loaded with energy that gets dumped on that little boy, or in my case, on me as a youngster.
Totally.
So had there been someone like you, like Sister Pat, who had there been somebody around my life at that time to listen without trying to fix,
Yeah, absolutely.
without trying to offer suggestions, without trying to find silver linings, but who would have been there to do nothing except be there.
Yeah.
And in the listening, there's so much power in the telling. If I had been able to share my story to a listener who had enough presence and whose arms were wide enough to be the strong arms of God, or the strong arms of the goddess, or whatever, that would have given me the sense of safety that, and it would have dissipated a lot of the power of the denial. That you could just express something like that, and the world doesn't blow up or doesn't need to come back at you with, well, I can fix that for you, because there's a problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, that's not.
It's
that's
just a
not
big
the,
emotional expression that
Yeah.
that is made safe to be presented.
No, that's it. And absolutely. I mean, again, the words seem so insufficient in that moment, and they are. You know, that's not. And the trap is to try to fix or solve. And yet, in the same breath, you know, I saw this kid light up when we were talking about possibilities. He did light up. So again, when he first sat down, his eyes and how sunken in and how much shame and pain he was carrying, that I get wasn't his. I mean, it's his in the sense that he took it on, and it's obviously part of his experience, you know, in this lifetime. But clearly what you're talking about, this withheld, this agency issue of how much collective shame and pain is going on in that family unit, you know, and everyone's bringing their stuff to the table, and that's where the giant family secret gets created, which then blows up when the kid's 10 years old, and his world as he's known it is completely disorganized, and he starts acting out, right? That's how how I describe what's happened. But my words are insufficient. However, he did light up. There is something about imagining possibilities, and someone who can hold that and say, yeah, I can see that for you. Yeah, I can see that for you. You know, that was really important. All three boys at the end, I felt like one of the things we accomplished is they came in with a big burden. And most of the work is loving them, and how directly Sister Pat gets in there and does that lifts the burden. But then also something that's possible, a vision for the future, a possibility that they can begin to go maybe, and a few people who go yeah. Because I think, you know, what happens in these circumstances so often is that their spirit is crushed because so many people around them's spirit has been crushed. You know, that there's so much hopelessness and helplessness that to suggest there's a possibility is so different.
Well, to suggest there's a possibility means to rekindle the pilot light.
That's it.
And it's a very, very tiny flickering pilot light.
It's tiny.
So once it's rekindled, inside of a community where there are others there to get down Boy Scout style and blow on that ember to keep it alive, to keep it flickering so that it could flicker, jump, and grow. That, I don't think that can be done in isolation. That requires a community to reignite the pilot light and to keep it burning, to keep it from being snuffed out again.
Yeah.
I think we have to pause for a break.
Yeah, we do. There's one little piece before we go to break. When we left, I turned to Sister and said, "You're in the miracles business, aren't you?" And she said, "I am." Because, you know, the chances of these kids getting the support you're talking about, I mean, I don't know what the odds are, and I don't really care. But Sister doesn't care. She doesn't care what the odds are. She's in the miracles business. And that's the part that's profound to me, because I want to be in the miracles business. And this presence, this way of being present, and the deep faith that that's going to have an impact is palpable. I can taste it when Sister's doing her prayer and saying the Spirit's here and it can take care of all this. It's very powerful for me. We need to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll explore more here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.